The first thing I did here with my school bus is, as you can well see, I added headlights by drilling out the front of the bus. Okay, drilling out the front of the bus. Used my super jet to glue them in first. Then I used epoxy that I put across here to keep any light from that LED from shining down underneath the bus. Then what I did was I drilled out on the bus, I drilled out I gotta get these wires out of the road, the lights at the top, the two reds and the two yellows on the back and on the front. Added a couple of kids, added a bus driver, and I then ran all my wiring back across the roof so I can kind of try and hide the wires down underneath the bus. So this will come down the side of the bus, and then I will hide all that so that nobody sees it. When I put everything back together again, here I'll put the doors back in, and so I'll show you what everything looks like right after I get everything put back in. A couple of years ago, I was lucky enough to be able to discover that there's a company called Dubro, and they make all kinds of linkages and control line hookups for the radio control airplane hobby. And so what I did was, through my distributor that we buy from through the Choo barn, I bought a card of each of what they had and put them in this little plastic case. And I use these items now quite a bit, especially these little things called easy connectors. They're very nice for what I do with animation. And I am able to use a couple of these pieces here. I also found through one of my electronic distributors, they had hardware. And the hardware I'm talking about are little right angle mounting pieces that I use all the time. They had different sizes, and so I bought a sampling of everything they had. And I've been using them on animations for 10 years or so. So what I'm going to need for the front is right across the front of the school bus here. There's always a bar, and then when the school bus comes to a stop, I want that bar to come out. Okay, it just has to come out a 90-degree arc right here, from here to here. And the way I'm going to do that is, this is actually a Dubro steering control arm, and it's already got holes drilled in it. This is a 5/8 or 5/32 inch hole here. So what I did was, I first cut some 5/32 brass piece, put it in my little Unimat lathe, and you can, if you don't have one, you can always buy one on eBay, I'm sure. I can't imagine anybody doesn't have hobby lathes for sale used. I was able to buy one from a gentleman who upgraded and didn't pay much for it, and I've used it. I even used it a number of years ago to make little baseball bats. Anyway, I line bored a 1/16 inch hole down through this piece of brass, and from that, what will happen is the piece that gets put down into that hole will be actually the arm that comes up out from underneath the layout that the bar across here is going to be fastened to. Now, I ended up taking my little right angles, and I fabricated a piece that ended up being like a Z. Used some Dubro collars. One I soldered onto here. That is my pivot. Used one at the bottom. Used the steering control at the top. And if I turn this, as you can see, what will happen is it will turn this piece of brass. Therefore, this piece of brass here. Therefore, my little gate, my little arm that's going to stick out in front here of the school bus. All right, while I made one, I figured I might as well make a couple of them because I've used them actually a couple of places on the layout already, so I already knew how to make those. Then what I had to do is I had to sit down and decide exactly how this all was going to work out. And sat down, used my geometry again, and figured out that to make this all work, this is what I needed to do. What I decided to do is use a Circuitron Tortoise slow motion switch machine. And the way these work is, if you give them positive, negative one way and hold it, this little arm goes one way. If you reverse that polarity, the arm is going to come back and it'll hold that way. And it will work real nice and slow. And what I ended up doing is putting a little extension. I don't know if you can see my little extension here. Use some more of the Dubro pieces here. There's a ball link, piece of threaded rod, and then that gets hooked up over here. Henceforth, through the layout, this will get all screwed to the bottom of the layout. My little 1/16 inch piece of brass rod over here with the arm going across. This will get brought up under the layout. This will be put right here in front of the school bus, and it's going to work. Now, I also then said, I sat down and said, okay, now to make this all work automatically, what do I got to do? So I sat down, I made up a schematic diagram, electronic schematic diagram using a couple relays and one of my little flasher units, some relays here, and put everything on the board. So all I got to do is hook up some wires here, give me some power, hook up my LEDs over here, so that when the school bus is sitting, it's just doing nothing, all of a sudden the yellow lights will flash, which are the two inside ones. Then the red lights flash, the yellow ones go off, and as the red lights start to flash, the bar comes out. And that's exactly how a school bus actually works. Then after the kids finally get on the bus, the bar comes back. When the bar comes back, then the red lights will go off and it'll sit and wait for a little while. I found a really slow RPM motor to run all this, and that's what my next thing is now, is to get that little drum, my little drum working, and I'll show you how that works out in a couple, hopefully in an hour or so. Okay, here's the school bus. You're going to have to excuse all the wires that are down in here. Obviously, they're going to go down through the display, down underneath to all the electronics that are actually on a board that is down right now. I have it actually down here. It's actually clamped down below here. And hooked to that is my little bar that goes across the front of the bus. On here on the left side, which will also be under the display, is my little, what I want to call my drum unit, which works on the same principle as the fire scene at the Choo Choo barn. With this is rotating, and it's going to hit these little micro switches. So it's coming up here very soon. So I want you to see what's going to happen. There you can see the yellow lights start to light, and shortly thereafter, the red lights start to flash, and the bar goes across in front. Then everything stops, bar goes back, red lights shut off. And again, it's all because of my little drum unit over here. I actually laid in bed last night when I got in bed, and I thought to myself, how can I do this without the drum unit? And I think I could have done it with a couple of my little ultronic timers, and maybe I will change that at some point in time so that I'm using timers instead of the little drum unit with the motor. But for now, I'm going to use the little drum unit because it works. If anybody else has any better ideas, email me. Let me know. I'd love to see. I'd love to know. So there you go. Next time you see it, it's going to be on the layout.